It's the George Plaster Show. 30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee. Featuring Tennessee Radio Hall of Famer George Plaster, Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame coach Watson Brown, and Young Guns Billy Derrick and Michael Cindric. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome in. It's a beautiful Friday in Nashville, Tennessee, and we have got a ton to get to today. If you're watching the show live here at about, 2:01 or whatever, we will run a good chunk of the Mike Vrabel press conference today with the new general manager, Ran Carthon. This happened about an hour ago. I'll tell you up front, I have not heard it. So I'm looking forward to it, hopefully as much as you are. And we will run this today around 3:30. We got a full show, a full plate. A lot of it's football, some of it's basketball. Billy, how are you?
George, I'm great. A lot of football to get to. Of course, we got Chris Balas coming up to talk some Michigan. Of course, we've also got basketball talk with Mark Griffin as well. So I'm ready.
Do. Got a full plate. And let's check over at the little boy table and see how Michael Cindric's doing. Michael, do you want people to see the table?
It's never, I kind of do. It'd be a good, that's ridiculous. I didn't even get anything except for the little boy table. That's the first thing I get.
Billy got it as well. I mean, look, it's an equal opportunity cheap shot.
How long have you been here? That's what I got this week.
Okay, but I mean, let's be honest. I walked into the facility about 45 minutes ago, and, I hadn't been here 10 seconds, and the two of you took a cheap shot about foliage.
Was the cheap shot, was it accurate?
We were saying it looks good. I was saying
no,
it looks good.
I don't
Here's what
think
happened.
it was meant to be a positive.
If you're confused, we were trying to give George a compliment.
No,
got a little defensive.
No.
And, took it as an insult.
That is not what happened. It was meant as a cheap shot all along. Mm-hmm. I could see it in Billy's eyes. And then, of course, with you, I knew exactly where it was going. Pretty shocking.
Billy, George is a little bit edgy today because he didn't have Watson with him. There's a little threatened here by the two young guys.
He's going to be a little bit more defensive today.
Little edgy.
But that's okay.
But we're going to get it all the way back on us. If I wasn't
here, this thing would fall apart.
That's probably true.
You're the one talking.
Billy, we're about to hear it all in the second hour when we go to Old Bet of the Day.
Oh,
man. Perfect week.
Yes.
That's rare.
Something to be proud of.
Something to write down. It's like a lunar eclipse.
Do we have an update?
We do, George.
Really?
We've got.
Is it award-winning?
It is another award-winning update coming your way.
Yeah, the first one is annoying.
Yeah, even though the Preds have not been award-winning, the Blues beat Nashville last night 5-2. St. Louis earned 2 points, and they're now ahead of the Preds in the Western Conference playoff race. The Preds will come home tomorrow night to play the Kings at 7 o'clock.
Here's the thing. Okay, it's not like this loss is going to eliminate them from a pennant race. But St. Louis is clearly one of the teams that they are competing against. And the truth of it is they were not one bit competitive last night. They got boat raced. And that's not a good sign.
No, it feels like every time we say this is a big game coming up, it doesn't look good.
I'm not saying the Preds aren't going to make it, but when we talked to Guy earlier this week, he was pretty confident that they're going to slip in, to that probably 8 slot right there. And you just watch them, and I don't have any confidence in them. I mean, they beat the bad teams. You know, they lose to some good teams, or sometimes they beat the good teams and go lose to the bad. There's just no consistency whatsoever. And Poyle's been catching a lot of flack today for that loss last night. That was not pretty at all.
Well, it's not a good sign, because this is a team that on paper they should be about dead even with. Now, whether they won or lost, that's one thing.
Sure.
The fact of it is they weren't the least bit competitive. Billy, move on to story number 2.
Story number 2 is involving the Michigan Wolverines, and they have announced that they fired co-offensive coordinator Matt Weiss, who is under investigation by University Police for a report of computer access crimes.
Don't ask me what that means. I have no idea.
Inside the football facility, AD Ward Manuel said the termination came after a review of university policies, and Weiss, he had been co-coordinator for just one season. Now he's gone. So I'm sure Chris Balas will have some more info for us with that coming up at 3:00. But
Chris is the man who runs the Wolverine, and he knows his stuff. This is going to be good.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with Michigan. Not just Harbaugh, but now you've got the co-offensive coordinator being let go. So a lot to get into with Chris Balas later. But George, the Bengals, as we get into the divisional weekend of the NFL, we'll preview those games. But they're banged up heading into the Buffalo game. They'll be officially out with 2 of their top offensive linemen. So Jonah Williams is out. Alex Kappa is also out, and that leaves them with only 3 reserves on the O-line remaining. So they're in a little bit of trouble for Joe Burrow protection.
Yeah. Although, let me say this. He got sacked 9 times a year ago here, and the guy showed a poise level that was unbelievable.
Yeah. If there's any quarterback that can, fill the void of some bad offensive line play, it's Joe Burrow.
The Bengals feel like the underdog that has the best shot of winning outright. Y'all buy that?
100%. 100%. And it's the Joe Burrow factor. I mean, they did it last year. They shocked everybody last year. And so you look at them, this year, you're like, well, why not? This is the perfect recipe. Would any of us be surprised Monday morning when we talk if the Bengals go and beat the Bills?
Mm-mm.
It might be like, okay, that's impressive, but I don't think any of us would be shocked.
No.
To me, of course, the country, Buffalo has been a fun team to root for. And now that you've had the situation with DeMar Hamlin, there are probably a few more that have jumped on Buffalo's bandwagon.
Right.
But I noticed it in the regular season finale against New England. And then it really reared its ugly head against Miami last week. They don't play a lick of defense.
No, they want to get into a high-scoring heavyweight shootout. That's it. So we're gonna see. I think the Bengals might get them. That's my pick. If I was gonna do an underdog pick, I'd take the Bengals money line.
There it is. Already revealing picks here. George, last piece here. Jaden Rashada, we talked about him yesterday. Florida's top quarterback prospect. He has been released from his national letter of intent by Florida and is now free to sign with any other team he likes. Of course, we talked about it. He asked for his release after a reported $13 million NIL deal fell through and was not paid by the Gator Collective. So
wonder what that really means. I mean, first of all, I'm assuming the Gator Collective is a nice name for here's where the money gets funneled.
Yeah.
I think, we all kind of think that's probably what it is. But what we don't know yet is, why did the money fall through? Did they decide, hey, this guy isn't worth $13 million? And by the way, on the college level,
nobody
who is?
Yeah.
There's probably more to this story that we need to get into.
Yeah, you got to wonder too if the coaches got involved. Maybe a coach saw that and said, "We're not paying. You guys don't need to be paying him that much." So there could be
that
a
would
lot
have
more
to be Billy Napier,
right? Yeah. So who knows? And maybe an agent that Jaden Rashada has. I mean, who knows?
It's going to be interesting to see. And it might not, the money might be it's probably going to be getting more and more outrageous, but eventually I wonder, this isn't going to be the last time we hear a story like this. I mean, there's going to be more and more and more of this. And eventually when, some of these collectives, kind of see where the market's at, I think it's going to correct itself a little bit. I think some of these numbers I'm not going to say they're going to go down to nothing. They're still going to be crazy, but it's got to correct itself a little bit.
I think more than anything, what's coming is a movement. Coaches, athletic administrators throwing up their hands going, we got to have some relief. We can't police ourselves. This is totally out of control.
Yep. And there were people along the way, George, that said, be careful what you wish for, because this and this and this and this is going to happen. You and Watson talked about it a couple years ago. If they open the gates, there's going to be no getting it back.
But
anyway, go ahead.
Well, but there's the stupidity of this is, look, very few people don't think players should get something.
Sure. Correct.
But under the category of something and 13 million,
yep,
I think it's fair that they want a little more than something, but they don't want to see people getting 13 million. That's absurd.
It's the same thing with the transfer portal too, George. I think people felt it was wrong that, somebody's coach could just go wherever they wanted to without any punishment, and a player had to sit out a year. And I get that. I think that there's got to be some middle ground. But the pendulum swung all the way to the other side that it is way too much right now. And they got to find a happy medium. I think you're right. It's going to be coaches and ADs. They're either going to start retiring early, because I wouldn't want to put up with this.
Well,
crap.
They're already starting to.
Yeah.
Jay Wright.
Or somebody's going to stand up, almost Kirby Smart a couple years ago. You heard that story after the national title game. I think it was a year ago. He almost called it quits, just tired of it all. So there's got to be some guys that stand up, say, listen, enough's enough. We don't have to go back to what it was, but there's got to be a happy medium.
Okay, after the break, our buddy Mark Griffin, former University of Tennessee basketball star, is going to join us. That will take us through most of the 2 o'clock hour. At 3 o'clock, we'll go to Michigan and find out what in the world is going on between Jim Harbaugh and the NCAA, because it looks like that story's about to explode. Then later in the hour, we're going to let you hear what essentially will be, call it what you want, raw tape of today's press conference involving Mike Vrabel and the new Titans general manager, Rand Carthen. So a lot on the plate. And of course, plaster bets of the day. And by the way, I'm red hot. I am.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is simple. I chose Hermitage Strike and Spare. They were amazing. Great food, great bowling, and a staff that's ready to go the extra mile. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5665.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonleyTimmons.com.
Okay, we're back, and we'll start as we do most Fridays during college basketball season. Mark Griffin, former University of Tennessee star, is with us. Look at him. Nice looking shirt, looking gutsied up. What's the occasion?
It's called work, George. I have a day job.
I believe it. We both do. So, am I right? You were at Thompson Bowling last Saturday?
You are correct, George. And what a great pregame activity there was for a lot of former student athletes that were in attendance, George. Allen Houston was back, Candace Parker. You know, they were honoring Chris Lofton with the Hall of Fame, and all of his teammates were there, which was a great occasion.
And the problem was that the game happened. And Mark, as good as this team has been, I'll admit I was caught a little off guard when it was over at the level of criticism that was aimed at Rick Barnes. You've heard it, you've read some of it, you've seen it.
Sure.
How much of it do you think is fair?
Well, I don't think any of it's fair. Just like I don't really think it's fair for the criticism that was going on for Coach Calipari to the extent that it was. I think he deserved more than Coach Barnes, but at the end of the day on Saturday, what I saw was the team that was more hungry and Kentucky. And one of the things that really, as far as rebounding, they were plus 20 against the Tennessee team that's ranked in the top 10 in the country in rebounding. So what does that tell you? That they were fighting for the ball more, positioned better to be the aggressor, and it was obvious. And people can say what they want about the missed layups that Tennessee had, but I feel the game's won and lost on the boards, and I mentioned that on your show last week. But as far as Barnes, I mean, he's had a 10-7 record against Coach Calipari. He's probably the only coach that's higher than 500 that's coached more than 5 games. So I don't understand that, but that's going to happen. Coaches know that they're going to be criticized. George, you're criticized. I'm criticized. We're all criticized. We just move forward and focused on the controllables.
So, Mark, I get part of it. Tennessee is sort of, when they look at Kentucky, they see Alabama in football.
Yes.
They see a school that oftentimes comes and packs out their gym. They don't like that. I get it. So now we know that Kentucky at max effort is pretty darn good. They're good enough to go to Knoxville and win. Why are they not doing this every night?
Well, I think one of the big keys that you're going to see moving forward, and I'm not knocking this young student athlete at all, but Savon Wheeler, a minute point guard, leader in the SEC and assist. When Coach Calipari, when he had a shoulder injury and they made a move to go bigger and I think more athletic, before the game I saw that and I thought, wow, this is going to be interesting, because if you played between Wheeler and the basket, he was not a big a threat. If he could blow by you, he's very effective. But teams had scouted Kentucky enough to know, let him take his three-point shot. Don't let him drive, because when he drives, if you can stay between him and the basket, he has a tendency of getting up in the air before making his pass and is able to turn the ball over a lot. But when they brought Chris Livingston in, I mean, gutsy performer, just a great athlete. And Frederick shot the lights out in the first half. I think Kentucky has needed that, and Frederick's been inconsistent, but he's a fine shooter. He's also had a hand injury, so you got to take into account some of these guys with injuries. My unsung hero for Kentucky, George, since we're on the topic, is I'm a big Toppin fan, and I feel Kentucky goes, mark this down, George, bucket, as you like to say. I think Kentucky goes as far as Toppin's athleticism and his rebounding effect and how he can alter a game, because they have other players and personnel, but he just gives them a much needed boost, and he helps out Sheebway, in which people figured out, he's going to get his 19 and 13. But if we just, as a scouting Kentucky, if we don't let Toppin get his rebounds and critical shots, then I think opponents are going to be in a better shape. But I think Kentucky's moving up now. I really do. I think it's a bump in the road. But we'll see, George. It's the SEC. Who would have thought what we saw this last week, what we saw some of these great games and upsets and protecting your home floor, great rivalries, and they will continue. One quick thing, George, before we go on, that I have to bring up, and I never thought I would see this in the SEC, and I'd be interested to get your perspective. When Kentucky plays anyone, it's a packed house on the road. People come to see Kentucky. Doesn't matter if it's Georgia, any program, South Carolina, when they do go back and play in South Carolina. But what was interesting that I've seen with Missouri, they're packing the house now. When they played Arkansas the other night, I really feel that Missouri crowd lifted this program for the will to win against an Arkansas team which is struggling right now. But I mentioned they're very young, and I'm really pleased to see what Coach Gates has done at Missouri for the fans to come back. And I've never seen that since they've been in the SEC, George.
So, Mark, let's just take a look at what you put out there on your 1 through 14 list. And there is Missouri sitting there at number 5. And you're right about a couple of nights ago. I mean, that game was won. Arkansas had it won and gagged it down the stretch. And, Missouri, to their credit, man, that crowd lifted them huge. So, in your opinion, what really is Missouri and what really is Arkansas?
Well, first I'll touch on Missouri. I think what you've seen is Coach Gates did a fantastic job of bringing in needed parts to complement Kobe Brown. Kobe Brown will be all SEC, deservedly so, this year. And many people, George, in the SEC didn't really know much about Kobe Brown. But what Kobe Brown now has around him is support staff. And he has guys that have come in from Cleveland State, where Coach Gates was from, that know his system. These guys are able to influence their teammates off the floor because they're able to say, hey, I've gone through this at Cleveland State. This is how coach and staff run things. This is, what translates into wins. And the guys that bought in, they're playing really hard. And it, once again, starts from their defensive end, which you did see against Arkansas. Arkansas and those young Bucks, they couldn't handle that pressure.
Okay, I'm looking at what you've put out there. Let's go 3 and 4. Are you really buying that Auburn is the 3rd best, and are you really believing that A&M will be at that level at the end?
I am buying Auburn. I do remember this is week per week, and it's not just rankings as far as in the parentheses is the net ranking, which is how you fare against opponents at home and on the road. There's this big scientific fancy formula, George, that you would know from going to Vanderbilt. I don't.
Oh, nice.
There you go. So I do take that consideration, but I do think that Auburn will be no worse than top 4 before the season's over. A great position going into the SEC tournament. because as you know, the top 4 teams get a bye, and I really see them in that top 4. Texas A&M is one of my surprise teams right now. Buzz Williams has done a fantastic job of really getting those guys focused once again on the defensive end. Now, Wade Taylor is another big-time name that a lot of people aren't familiar with. He's the captain of the ship. He's played really well. And what I like about Texas A&M so far is they probably have the most depth in the SEC as far as players getting minutes inside and with their wings. And that's a concern with several of these programs, including Arkansas, which was a hot team, their preseason number 10, I believe. And then they had an injury, a bad injury to two of their players. But I think the youth has really hurt them in the sense that they're not able to adjust on the road. And that's taking its toll right now in Arkansas, which they will grow up, more down the season. But I think there's several losses ahead for Arkansas, especially on the road.
Mark, where is Georgia finding the stuff to be, to me, more competitive than I would have thought going in?
Well, I don't know a lot about their personnel. That's probably the least, the team that I know the least about. But when I watch them, they seem to be very cohesive. When they run their offense, a lot of chatter, but I think that on defense, I think that comes from the top with Mike White, which is still a confusing hire from my perspective, George. I'm sure yours as well. Leaving Florida for whatever reasons those were to go to Georgia.
Well, I think we know what it is. He felt like he was going to get fired at the end of this year if he stayed.
Yeah, and Georgia's a place, it's interesting, and it's another topic for another day, but Georgia's a hotbed for talent in basketball, like it is in football. And it's just, they just haven't won. Of course, they got crappy facilities. But I think Mike White's really inspired these guys to play better than they should be right now. And it'll be determined. I don't see them in the top 7 moving forward down the road. I still see them about an 8 or 9, maybe even a 10. And this ranking, as I like to mention, is debatable, but a lot of it's eye test as well. That's why I have Mississippi State so low. I mean, Joe Lunardi loves Mississippi State. I'm not as big a fan of them because I've watched them in person and I've seen them several times on TV, and they can't score. I mean, they have no offense at all. And yeah, they play defense because they sit on the ball. They have no threats at all to score. So I'm not real big on Mississippi State.
Okay, I want to go back to Georgia because you brought up to me what is the puzzling deal. And in my mind, not since Tubby was there, have they been able to unlock, and you know this better than I do because you're around this world, the AAU world of Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, I don't know how at Georgia that the first priority has to be hire African American. And that to me is the mystery of the whole Mike White hire.
I agree. And I have watched many games in the travel circuit of teams from the Atlanta area without naming all of them because I'm afraid I'll miss out on a few. But the one program that really does stand out is the Atlanta Celtics. And you're right. And there were guys that are coaching elsewhere right now that were up for this Georgia job and were overlooked for whatever particular reason. So me, it's a head scratcher to bring in Coach White. We'll see and see what type of relationships he'll be able to build, but he's got to build either himself or his assistants some sort of positive relationship with the travel teams because they're right there in their backyard practically, and they're not going to Georgia Tech, George. So, he has the opportunity. We'll see down the road. I think he's off to a really good step so far because this Georgia team, was predicted to be, like a 12th place team in the SEC or even below. So they've exceeded expectations so far.
Okay, before you and I get back together for the next go round, Vandy will have gone to Georgia tomorrow, and then they host Kentucky on Tuesday. Kind of give me what you think, because there's this euphoria that Vandy beat Arkansas and shot lights out after the stupidity of the officials giving Arkansas 124 technical foul shots in a row. Some of the dumbest officiating I've seen in a while, given that the Arkansas player started the whole thing in sort of this stand-up stare down at Melora Brown. But then about the time that you want to say, okay, can Vandy hang with the big boys? They got beaten double digits by Alabama. So where is Vandy?
Well, it's a big mystery right now. I guess one of the big questions I would throw out is Leon Robbins. I don't know as of today what his status is. George, you may know.
He's going to be out for a while. Billy, go ahead.
It's reportedly 4 to 6 weeks, but especially with him being a potential NBA draft pick, maybe late round, I mean, you got to wonder if he'll even, want to come back.
I'm not saying it's a death knell, but it sure doesn't help.
That's not a good thing, because we had talked on the air before about, I couldn't understand why Coach Stackhouse had him coming off the bench, and he was playing around 22 minutes a game when he's a difference maker, number one shot blocker in the SEC and one of the tops in the country, but yet not even playing 24 minutes. And I don't buy in that he's not in shape. I mean, if he was hurt before, fine, but I mean, you got to play him. You just let him set screens and block shots. I mean, you got to have him on the floor. One of the encouraging things that I've seen the last 2 games with Vanderbilt is Tyron Lawrence has really stepped up his game, the junior. And what Vanderbilt's going to need, first of all, is to focus on the Georgia game. That is a winnable game. Someone or at least 2 players are going to have to really step it up. I'm a fan of Jordan Wright. I still don't understand why he's coming off the bench, George, and maybe that's changed in the last week. I'm not sure.
Oh, Mark, I think you have hit, for me, the mystery of Vanderbilt basketball, which is this guy has got to be out there 30 minutes plus a game. I don't get it.
I don't get it at all. I mean, he's a game changer. And that's funny. That's like the topic now. When you look at individual players, you don't just say, hey, can this guy play in the SEC? And if we're focusing just on the SEC, you go, is that guy a game changer? And I think Jordan Wright is a game changer because he makes other players better. And he's a mismatch concern because of his size. He can blow by guys that are bigger than him. He can post up players that are close to his height. So I just think he can really set up Vanderbilt for an upcoming big game against Kentucky next week with a win at Georgia. And I'll be really interested. I'll be tuned in to watch that game, George, to see what materializes.
Yeah, it's kind of call it what you want. It's a 2-game game tomorrow down there. You're either 2-4 or 3-3 in the league. And depending on which one you are, you're either really feeling good or not feeling good at all.
Yeah. And as we've talked about before as well, I like to bring up and I was thinking about even when I played years ago, you don't want to play that first night of the SEC. I mean, it's depressing. No one's there. I mean, just family members practically are there, and
Les Robinson.
And Les Robinson, and maybe you, George. I'm not there. So you don't want to play that first night because you really do have a competitive disadvantage long term because you're turning around and you're having to play an extra game if you do advance for some reason, somehow, to maybe even get towards the finals. So first goal that I think that the guys have that they don't talk about, because you don't want to be relegated to say we want to finish 10th. Well, you don't want to finish 11th to 14th for sure. So I think you're spot on, George, about the game this weekend, because you've got a lot more confidence and momentum moving forward. If you're a 3-3 and you're knocking Georgia to 3-3, now you jump them in the standings as well, which gives you a little more comfort moving forward.
Mark, get ready, because when we come back, Michael Cindric is going to talk to you. And all I can tell you is between now and then, brush up on the Big 12.
Ooh.
You ready?
Ready.
Okay. Stick around, all of you. We're back in a moment.
Lead him with a Big 12 question.
I know it's getting colder. You're not thinking about golf. However, if you're planning an event for next year, let me suggest golf through Riverside Golf Links. The course has improved dramatically. It's perfect for hosting a corporate or a charitable outing. They've got everything in place to make your event a rousing success. To get more info, call 615-847-5074 or go online to riversidegolflinks.com.
Hockey in Music City just hits different. It's one big honky-tonk party. It's the sea of gold in the crowd. The goals, the saves, the celebrations. It's an experience like no other. Don't miss a minute of the action this season. Visit NashvillePredators.com/tickets to get your seats today. That's NashvillePredators.com/tickets. And we'll see you at Bridgestone Arena.
Jody Jones has as nice a dental facility as you'll find anywhere. Let's go in and take a look. Are you in the market for a new dentist? Maybe you're new to Nashville? Well, the place to go is Jody Jones Dentistry at 55 Music Square East, and their new facility is absolutely state-of-the-art. Jody mixes quality with comfort for the perfect dental experience. He's trusted for his creative design and committed to both the function and aesthetics of your smile. Jody is simply the total package. Don't wait. Make an appointment now at 615-259-5100. We're talking college basketball with former University of Tennessee star Mark Griffin. He joins us every Friday on the show. Michael, say hello to Mark.
What's going on, Mark? How are you?
Hi, Mike. Great. Good to talk to you.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm not going to go straight to Big 12. Got a couple of SEC questions for you. Then I'll pepper you with some Big 12. But I would love to talk to you a little bit about Alabama. This time of year, teams can either be hot and then kind of cool off. Teams that aren't maybe great in the beginning of the year start heating up around March Madness time. It's kind of an ebb and flow. But when you watch Alabama, is it one of those two, or is it this team's just really good? Because obviously right now they're playing really good basketball. Are they as good as advertised with what we've seen the last week or two from Alabama?
Great question. And I think they're as good as advertised. I think that they are a Final Four contender, and they have the puzzle pieces in place. Other than, if my only concern about Alabama is, let's say they go up against Purdue and Zach Edey. With Beniaco, Alabama's big man, is, let's say, limited offensively and potentially defensively. I don't see a lot of depth on the inside for Alabama. And I think that may hurt them if they go up against power type teams that are big. And then I think of particularly some of these the Big Ten conference. So that's a concern, but every program has something, but they have everything on their team that is going in the right direction that makes you think that if they hit a bump, it's going to be a small bump. Like, are they going to be undefeated in the SEC? They're going to have nights they don't shoot well. Brandon Miller's not going to have a great night every night. Who else is going to step up? I'm a big fan of Mark Sears, their point guard that came from Ohio. Once again, talking a lot about transfers, and people can say what they want about the transfer portal. It works for many programs for guys to get a second shot at another program that maybe fits their style more. Maybe they've had too big a conflict with their former coach or playing behind a star player. Mark Sears is someone that many people didn't know about before this season, but he's an important cog in Alabama's offense. And Quinterly, their backup guard now, was getting 30 minutes a game 2 years ago, the transfer from Villanova. He's one of your role because he can be there to help these young guns that Alabama has that they've recruited, that Nate Oates has recruited so well.
Mark, when you watch Brandon Miller, he's unbelievable. Honestly, he really is. He just dominates. It seems like every game he's in. What NBA comparison would you give to him when you watch a player like that?
Well, the one that comes right out, and I haven't done any research on this to see what other people say, I think of Paul George.
Might have lost Mark for just a second. Is it just me?
Yeah, we're lost connection on Mark. I'm sure he'll.
Yeah. Paul George.
There he is.
Hey, Mark, you there? Looks like we're losing him for a second. I like the Paul George comparison.
Yeah, it's not a bad one at all.
No.
Billy, what do we do? He doesn't know that we can't hear him, does he?
No, I think he may have either accidentally muted himself or has the volume down, but we can't hear him. Mark, you back?
Hey. Yeah, it looks like we lost him. Or maybe can't hear.
Yeah, for some reason we can't hear you, Mark.
Well, you know what? If that's what we have to do, then that may be what we have to do. Yep. We get him on by phone.
Sure thing.
I like the Paul George comparison though, because it's one of those big wings that you really see have taken over the NBA. I mean, Kevin Durant was kind of probably the first guy that I can think of that was a big wing, George, that can really score. And it seems like, that those guys now, if you can get one of those on your team, I mean, that's Kevin Durant wasn't the first. I mean, gosh, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, these just big, strong wings that can really score and defend.
Well, he definitely is that. I think Mark's back on. So
let's do it
again.
George, he's on by phone. We've got him on by phone.
Yeah. Okay. So, Michael, do your best.
Hey, Mark, can you hear me? Is he getting me?
You guys still can't hear him?
No, I can't get him. Mark, we were going down such a good road. I was loving what I was hearing from you. And then I lost you for a second. I know Billy's working on it. But man, I loved where he was going with it. I got more questions.
Okay,
too.
He should be good now.
Well, hold on a second, because
at least by phone.
Hold on a second. Turn me on. Because yes, I'm hearing. Oh my God, it's a miracle. Mark, are you there?
I'm here by phone and I can see myself. So
that's beautiful.
There we go.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, Mark, I lost you. I lost you on the Brandon Miller NBA comparison. I heard you say Paul George, and then you kind of cut out from there. But if you want to pick up back there, we can keep going.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned that is it's just my analysis based on watching Paul George over the years. Is he's such a great athlete, and Paul George is a guy that can knock down shots from any angle, anywhere on the court, even mid-range. I look at Brandon Miller. He's freaky quick, can blow by you, stop on a dime, and knock down a shot. He's a guy that obviously has tremendous work ethic, because he's continually improving throughout the season and is probably one of the hotter NBA prospects that's moved up in the draft as far as, the conversation in the lottery pick. Now, I've even seen on a draft board where they had him as high as 3. And so it's amazing his work ethic and what Coach Oates has been able to bring out of him. And just like Paul George, another comparison is his body language is really good. He doesn't get down when he has a turnover. Paul George was really good of having great, body language. So I just think that's a really good comparison for him. And the sky's the limit for Brandon.
All right, one more SEC question for you. Not for Billy to put that list back up, but when you look at the SEC, it's hard sometimes to tell, how good are teams in relation to teams outside of the conference. Once you start conference play, you just see how good they are compared to one another. And obviously, some of this is some luck when you get in the tournament. It's some good fortune. Teams get hot, but if the tournament starts tomorrow, how many Elite 8 teams potentially do you think could be coming from the SEC?
I think when you look at the SEC, first thing comes to mind is at least 3. I do feel it could be a combination of a few teams, but I think Alabama, if I was a individual that bet, I would say Alabama could be a lock. I'd be really surprised if Alabama's not in the Elite 8. I'd say I'm going to say Tennessee, and I know a lot of people listening are going to go, yeah, but look at the past. They haven't fared too well. But when you look at the national tournament this year, I think the door is wide open as far as who could win. There's not one dominant team in all facets of the game. So I'm going to say Tennessee, as long as they shoot respectably from the field. They're going to get out rebounded sometimes like they did against Kentucky, but they shot 3 of 21 from 3 at home. I mean, that's not going to work. I'm going to say Auburn or Kentucky. Auburn, because they're getting good guard play. Once again, another team that's got a lot of depth. It's interesting. Their 2 leading scorers were transfers from the OVC. Wendell Green and Broom, the big guy. But they have depth. They believe in Coach Pearl's system. I'm big on them. And then I'm going to say Kentucky's going to figure out their issues moving forward. I think they're a team that Calipari's he obviously has been there. They're going to lean on him, and they're still a mixture of a lot of young guys that had a lot of accolades coming into Kentucky. I think they're going to gel, and I think they'll be a force within the tournament. So Alabama, Tennessee, and I'll say Auburn or Kentucky.
I like it. Mark, I don't know how much you've been able to watch of Gonzaga this year, but they're struggling a little bit right now. And usually we kind of see them cruise through the year. And then when it gets tournament time, that's when everybody says, well, let's see what Gonzaga really is.
Yeah, that road trip to the University of San Diego, whew, that's rugged.
Well, hey, they didn't even have to make a road trip last night. They got beat at home.
San Francisco.
Steve Lavin, George, he's a San Diego coach. There you go.
The last time they lost at home, what was it, Jimmy Carter administration?
I don't think Billy or I was born yet. This last time they
like 76 or so. I haven't looked it up, but I know it's.
I think you're right. It's in the 70s somewhere.
Number 1 nation.
What's going on with them? I mean, have you been able to watch enough to know what's giving them more trouble this year, just in normal conference play? What are their issues come down to when you watch Gonzaga?
I have watched Gonzaga many times. I watched the preseason game pay-per-view against Tennessee for a whopping $9.99. But it was, pregame. And I saw there one thing that concerned me was the biggest issue with Gonzaga is not the talent. They have several 5-star players. They have the most hated player in America, in Drew Timme, from the fans' perspective outside of his family. I think this is a team that struggles as a cohesive unit on the defensive end. And defense, I think, will win the championship this year. And that's why I'm big on Houston. It's not like they have a lot of NBA players, but they have, you've got to bring your defense to play in this style of basketball that we're seeing now. And I think Gonzaga lacks in that. I think they're a team, and I would hate to compare them to Loyola Marymount back in the heyday of the late 80s because they let people run by them. But Gonzaga seems like, and Mark Few seems like the emphasis is not on defense as much as the other factor is we're going to score more than you because we're going to run the ball through Timmy and then see what he can do with it, which he has amazing moves for a collegiate player, and then take it from there. But I think, once again, if you take Timmy out of the game, you put him up against Kentucky and Sheboy, I'd love to see that. I think Sheboy gets the best of Timmy. I really do, because Sheboy has great athleticism. So I don't think that Gonzaga will be in the Final Four. They may make the Elite Eight, but it's all based on matchups. But I do think there's some issues there for Gonzaga that will be addressed.
Mark, when I watch the Big 12, and it's in the SEC as well, but it's really two really good basketball conferences. It's easy to see teams win impressive games, and you start to kind of buy stock in them, and then they get beat. How much of that? Just talk to me from a philosophical standpoint of how easy it is to look at a team like that and say, well, they're inconsistent. How much of that do you think we misinterpret for, no, it's just the conference is really, really good. There's a lot of really good teams in the conference, and it's hard to go on the road to, Baylor, hard to go on the road to Texas and get a win. Do you see that, or do you see inconsistency, or do you see, really good conference play in the Big 12?
Well, I haven't looked at any comparisons, but I think the Big 12 is the best conference in the country. I mean, you look at 6 teams in the top 25 right now. You've got several teams. You have 4 teams in the Big 12 that are at least – there's 3 of them that are undefeated at home, so you see that advantage. And then you've got a 4th that's just lost 1, Texas, at home in their new facility. Top to bottom, I think it's the best conference. I don't know what their overall net ranking is, but I'm sure it's probably number 1. And the biggest shocker to me is Kansas State. If many of you were able to watch that game, it was a fantastic game against Kansas.
Oh, yeah.
Keontae Johnson, the transfer from Florida that was told he'd never play basketball again, and he is a stud. And then looking at Jerome Tang, I think he was a 19-year assistant coach at Baylor. Kansas State was preseason voted number 10 in the Big 12.
Wow.
And they are currently sitting at number 1. And we haven't talked about this yet, but it shows how great a job he's done. I think he's coach of the year, and I'll tell you why, if you don't mind me digressing. These other coaches that have done such a great job, and there's many of them that have their teams ranked high, like a Nate Oates at Alabama. But the thing is, these teams were preseason ranked very high. Jerome Tang's taken a team that was ranked at the very bottom.
Right.
You got to give that consideration. And right now they're 13th. They're going to go into the top 10 if they win this weekend. So he gets my vote right now.
Yeah, if the season stopped right now, Mark, he would be in the top 2 or 3 for National Coach of the Year. You may not know this. He hired my buddy Anthony Winchester, former Western Kentucky basketball star. And I'm going to try and get Anthony on the show here in the next couple of weeks, because you're right. They are absolutely the talk of the town. You think about how many times Kansas has rubbed their nose in it. And finally, 2 nights ago, K-State got them back a little bit. Hey, I know we got to run. Thanks for the visit. Good luck, Big Orange.
Go Big Orange. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mark. Talk to you, Mark.
All right.
Okay, after the break, stat of the day, it's a solo effort. They gang up on me. I'm not thrilled about it, but I'll rise. I will take my game up a notch. Maybe. And then we'll go up to Ann Arbor. Chris Balas, who runs the Wolverine will join us to talk about whatever is going on up there. It's getting a little nasty. Stay tuned.
Hey, thank you for meeting with me today. The insurance company has made an offer.
Already? How?
They've offered you the entire policy.
Thank you, Blair.
You're so welcome.
Forget the fact that Sir Speedy Music City is owned by my BGA classmate James Warren. Their work stands on its own merit. James and his staff do incredible work, as evidenced by the huge banners at the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. If you're looking for quality to help your marketing and business communications, and you want it at a reasonable price, these are your folks. Call them at 615-832-9511 or go to print at sirspeedymusiccity.com. And be sure to tell them Plaz sent you. Welcome to John English Antique Sports and Cards, located at 204 East Depot Street in beautiful downtown Shelbyville, Tennessee. Their phone number is area code 931-492-4304. John, obviously, I've been blown away by what I've seen at your place. I've now been there 3 times. But for the person who's never been, what should they expect?
Well, we have a 3,000 square foot store, George. Half of it is vintage cards in all sports, and then half of the store is, a lot of people call it the museum, where there's a lot of early equipment and just the history of sports in general: baseball, football, basketball, golf, tennis, and other items.
When somebody comes in there that you know is a big sports fan, what is their normal reaction?
Well, I think that they're pleasantly surprised, and of course, being in Shelbyville, Tennessee, which is a small town that you would never expect a shop like we have to be in. So they're kind of, I don't want to say blown away, but as I said, pleasantly surprised.
Welcome back into the George Plaster Show, final segment of this first hour. We've got Stat of the Day coming up. It's brought to you by John English Antique Sports and Cards in the beautiful downtown Shelbyville, Tennessee, located 204 East Depot Street. They're open Tuesdays through Fridays from noon to 5, and also Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5. You can give them a call at 931-492-4304. That's 931-492-4304. All right, let's get to Stat of the Day. Let's see what Michael's got cooked up for us. And yes, George, you are on an island today. It's just you, no Watson.
I think you can get this one, though. I really do.
So Michael's saying it's easy. Let's take a look. Entering January 7th of this year, the top 3 longest active home winning streaks in college hoops belonged to which 3 teams?
Okay, we know Gonzaga last night, and I think it was 76 in a row.
Yeah.
Bo Schembechler was Michigan's coach the last time they lost at home. I'm aiming that at Chris Balas, who hopefully heard that. Chris, if you did, give me a little thumbs up there. Gosh, the other 2.
George, the hint here is that all 3 of them have been snapped.
Yeah. And I don't know why I'm thinking that there's something like a Cleveland State in there, somebody that nobody would be thinking of. And
let me give you a hint. I'll give you a hint.
Kansas is the other one I'm thinking.
They're from 2. The other 2 are Power 5 conferences. I know this is tough. You got a bunch of schools, but they are from Power 5 conferences.
Oh gosh.
But you got to think of someone that's lost at home recently as well.
Ooh. Okay. Certainly Kentucky is one of the two.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. They had a long streak snapped at Rupp, and I'm trying to think who actually got them.
Wasn't that South Carolina that got them?
That's right. It
Yeah.
was South Carolina, but I was trying to think if somebody got them in the preseason. And God, I don't know the third.
Yeah, this is a tougher one. The third one is
Baylor.
Billy, you want to go ahead and flash it up? It's a good guess. Arizona.
Gonzaga, UK, and Arizona. Those are three blue bloods right there.
Those are three blue bloods.
Yep.
So Gonzaga got beat last night by whom?
Who did they? Some high school, I think.
San Francisco Tech, whoever.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Wow. Nice attitude on your end.
And Kentucky and Arizona actually were tied at 28. They were second for
basically 2 seasons worth.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we now free to legally begin the 3:00 hour?
It's legal, George.
We're headed up to Michigan. There is all kinds of stuff going there. And I want to say thank you to my friend Chris Balas from the Wolverine, who joins us to try to unfurl all this mess. Chris, how are you?
I've been busy, brother. But you know what? It's up here in Ann Arbor, so especially the last 2 years, and lots going on right now, but it looks like Jim Harbaugh is staying and some of his staff is going.
Okay, do this for people who know there's something going on but don't know the specifics. What is it the NCAA is accusing him of before they get to we're now accusing you of not being cooperative?
Right. Okay, I'll give you the details here. They accused him of illegal contact during a COVID dead period. During COVID, they assigned a dead period for safety purposes, and they accused Jim Harbaugh of having contact with 2 recruits. They also accused them of a couple other level 2 violations. One was an analyst working with kids on the field when he wasn't supposed to be, maybe doing some drills or something like that, and then watching a Zoom film. I guess some of his coaches were watching a Zoom of a recruit. I guess his brother had been sick, and so they were showing him doing push-ups or something like that, and they watched that. So he got in trouble for a level 2. All of these, from what we understand, if it weren't for the level 1 violation, would have resulted in probably 8 hours off the recruiting trail, something very minor. But what had happened was 2 committed recruits came to Ann Arbor during COVID on a whim. They just decided an impromptu visit. Michigan didn't schedule it, but they showed up at Schembechler Hall, and Jim says, well, you came all this way. We should probably have a burger or breakfast or something like that. And it was 10 a.m., and they go to this restaurant called the Brown Jug, and these kids get breakfast, and Jim Harbaugh gets 2 hamburgers, apparently, because that's what he eats for breakfast. And he said he didn't recall when the NCAA asked him about it. I think the understanding is that he said, I don't recall that. I don't know if that's what happened. He said, you know what? These kids came to town. We did not schedule it, whatever. Then they produced apparently a receipt. And when they did that, he said, well, I don't know, so wouldn't admit to it. So the NCAA says, look, you're lying, you're lying about not remembering. And he says, no, I'm not. So now we're at an impasse here where unless Jim Harbaugh admits to lying to the NCAA, then they're going to continue to pursue him. And instead of pursuing maybe a suspension of 1 or 2 games, give him maybe 6 games of a suspension for next season for this. So Michigan's willing to fight it. They are willing to actually go to litigation. From what we've talked to some people in the Michigan Athletic Department and closer to it, the president's office and things like that, they're like, this is ridiculous. So Michigan is prepared to fight it. We'll see how far it goes, but that's the crazy stuff that we're working on right now.
Chris, this has a little bit of the feel of what Tark put out years ago, that the NCAA was so mad at Kentucky that they added an extra year onto Cleveland State. And which was one of the all-time classic lines I think has ever been put out there in sports. I've used that line 100 million times. But this one feels like a little bit that they're frustrated that they really don't have the power to get at anybody anymore. And now all of a sudden they've got one big, big gun that they can go after, and they're getting silly about it.
It does. And, I do not condone any cheating. You know how we act up here. And Michigan always errs on the side of caution in these things. And they probably thought, well, we're going to show them, and Michigan's going to comply and that's going to be it. But Michigan's got a new president in town, this guy, Santa Ono, who came from first Cincinnati and then the University of British Columbia. And he's like, this is crazy. And in talking to people in that department, in the administration, they said this is absolutely nuts, and there is no way that Santa's going to agree to this. There is no way that the Michigan administration and coaches are going to agree to this, and we're not going to agree to it. It's just the way it is, especially when you look around, you look at what's going on at Kansas with Bill Self and all these other programs, and you're talking about a couple of committed recruits coming here, impromptu visit, and this is what you're going to try to take Michigan down for. It's nuts. And that's the way they feel about it. So, I can go back, for example, it's 30 years ago to the Fab Five and that whole scandal. And I would say that was crazy, and Michigan deserved everything they got during that. I would say that in a heartbeat. With this, I would say I wouldn't call it a witch hunt, but I think it's exactly what you say it is. Okay, look at us. We're going to flex our muscles. And one of the quotes that one of the administrators at Michigan said to me was, and I thought this was pretty telling, you know what? If they want to, then we will go to the mattresses and we will be the final nail in the NCAA's coffin. Who do they think they are?
Let me ask you this. Do you think Harbaugh has considered going really much more national with this and saying, look, George Plaster, you went to dinner the first night of COVID. You went with your buddies Will Perdue, Glenn Clem, and Steve Reese, former Vanderbilt basketball players, before, we knew the seriousness. Do you know what you ate that night? And the answer is, no, I don't. I don't remember. I know where we ate, but I have no idea. I'm pretty certain I didn't pick up the bill because I'm accused of that from time to time. But this seems really stupid. Is he about to go really front and center stage and say, I want everybody to know I've had enough of this crap?
I think that's a fair question. And Jim hasn't spoken as much on social media recently. He came out swinging when he first got at Michigan with the satellite camps, and he was on Twitter, and going back and forth with certain coaches. And if a coach would say something, he would respond to it. He's been much more quiet that way and let other people fight the battles. I think he will be represented, though. People have talked about Tom Mars from Atlanta, one of the high-profile attorneys that's worked with Michigan players in the past, potentially representing him in this matter. What you hope will happen is that the NCAA will step down. Michigan has said, okay, we will allow 1 or 2 games for our coach, a suspension for the level 2 violations, even though they're next to nothing compared to what goes on out there. You know what? We will not allow you to suspend him 6 games for what you can't prove, frankly. And that's Dan Wetzel from Yahoo Sports wrote a great column on this. And he said, you know what? People have told him there's just no way. How is the NCAA going to prove that he was intended on lying to them when all he said was, no, I don't remember. And even if you do remember, you've got to prove that he was lying. And how do you do that? I don't know. So I think the hope is that cooler heads will prevail here, and the NCAA will say, all right, fine. Well, you know what? We'll agree to 2-game suspension. It's going to be a couple of meaningless non-conference games. I think it's East Carolina and a MAC school this year, and looking at Michigan's non-conference slate. But it is one of those things that it's hard to believe that we are writing about this and having to respond to these things in January when you look around the NCAA at everything that's going on. And but it seems to be the case with Michigan. You'll remember under Rich Rodriguez, they got in trouble for what it amounted to extra practice time for stretching. And you know what? And Michigan, basically at that point, you could tell they were a little skeptical about it, but they said, this is what we did. But we're not going to fall on the sword here. And they didn't get not much came of it. So I think more and more Michigan is responding to these allegations like this with, look, NCAA, it's time to go chase somebody else.
Chris Balas from the Wolverine has great info, as all of you can tell. Michael, say hello to him.
What's going on, Chris? How are you?
Hey, Michael. Doing great. Thanks.
Question for you. With Harbaugh, everything that's been going on with the NFL, the speculation, all the rumors, and it's kind of felt like, it's the whole story every offseason. It's kind of like the Aaron Rodgers of college football story. You're just kind of wondering, is he going? Is he not? What's the perception, in Michigan around when they've heard that the last couple of seasons?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I will say this is the second year in a row, and it doesn't surprise me. There were a few of us that were not surprised. And when we actually interviewed media at Big Ten Media Day, do you think Jim Harbaugh is really done flirting with the NFL? 16 out of 17 said no, including one in the media who had played for Jim Harbaugh. So it's not really a shocker. I think there's no question that there's part of him, and he's admitted this in interviews. When we broke the story last year that Jim Harbaugh was planning to go to Minnesota to take that job, that's exactly what it was. He was going up there to sign a contract. I think he thought it was a done deal. In fact, I know he did. And it just so happened that the interview didn't go very well. But he promised Michigan 7 years when he first got here, Jim Hackett, who was the interim athletic director, and he said, I will give you 7 years. After that, I don't know what I'm going to want to do. It just so happened that Super Bowl itch, he was so close to beating his brother at San Francisco and beating Baltimore for the Super Bowl, and it just fell short. And he admitted, he said last year, I still have that itch. That itch doesn't go away, guys, unless you scratch. So I think he is more interested in the NFL than they are in him. And I think if you look around, for example, he approached Carolina. His brother's agent at Baltimore was working on his behalf. You know what? I think he approached Denver. I think if there were other teams out there, I don't think there's any question that Jim Harbaugh would be interested, but he's almost 60 years old now. And what happened at San Francisco and the way that played out, the ugly divorce that he had there, I think there are NFL programs that just aren't as willing to take a chance on him. So if somebody were to come to him next year, guys, and say, you're our guy, I don't think there is any question that he would listen to that. Now, the new contract that they're working out has a higher buyout. But yeah, Jim Harbaugh loves the thought of coaching in the NFL. That is the way I feel. I know that he loves Michigan. And you know what? I don't begrudge him that. You look at guys who have dreams just like their kids do. And, with the transfer portal and everything else. But yeah, at some point it affects recruiting, guys. And you have to say, hey, if you're going to do this again next year, then maybe we're going to have to go a different way.
Talk to me a little bit about, I see the offensive coordinator for Michigan just got let go for, I don't even really understand the allegations of what he did. But if you could talk a little bit about that, but then also, who you think may get targeted for that offensive coordinator job to replace him.
Yeah, they might look to promote from within, to be honest with you, at one of their analysts. There's a young man named, he's from Old Dominion, and his name escapes me. I apologize, guys. But I think that's where they'll start. They like their analysts. They had a guy last year, Ryan Osborne, who went to work for Baltimore, and John Harbaugh, who was outstanding. And they promoted some outstanding guys from those roles. Chris Parker is another one who ended up at Mississippi. So I think that's the route that they could go. As far as the allegations go, we can't get into detail. We can just say it was serious enough, guys. It wasn't just, I'm hacking into an email here or there and exploring. It was serious enough that Michigan said, okay, there's no way that we can bring you back. And I'm sure that details will emerge as people FOIA things. And we have more of an idea of what went on. We can say it's not good, guys. It's not, you just can't, these are things that you just can't do anywhere. So we'll see how it affects his coaching career. Matt Weiss came to Michigan from Baltimore. He was a John Harbaugh guy there as well. In fact, he started with Jim Harbaugh as an analyst or a student assistant at Stanford. So they have a relationship there. That if Jim Harbaugh and everybody else is agreeing that he has to go, that it was something certainly worthy of letting him go.
You didn't happen to be referring to Ricky Ronnie. Was that the name at Old Dominion? I think that.
No, and I'm going to look it up right now, guys. It's actually on the front page of our site right now, and I was scrambling to try to connect on Zoom here. But I will look it up for you. He's been a quarterbacks coach at Michigan, or not a quarterbacks coach, but an analyst, and he was actually, I believe, let go from. He was let go from Old Dominion, and his name is Kirk Campbell, actually. So he worked with the Wolverines quarterbacks in an off-field capacity in past seasons, and he is one guy who has a lot of support, and a lot of people really like him. So, in fact, on 3.com, I believe, called him one of the up and comers in a support staff role in the profession, setting themselves up for advancement. So wouldn't surprise me if they went that route. They've got a good culture right now, guys. It's amazing. George, we talked a couple of years ago about how bad the culture had fallen. I said Michigan, and I didn't think would fire Jim Harbaugh, that they would stick with him and hope that he changed the culture. That's exactly what happens. Now they're at a high. I think they want to keep that going and make sure that they, if they promote from within, I think they feel like they have a better chance with that.
One more question for Chris. I'm from the South, so I can understand some certain rivalries: Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Auburn. I know obviously Ohio State and Michigan is a great rivalry that I wish I could understand more. What has that been like for the Michigan fan base the last 2 years when they couldn't get their number for so long in the Urban Meyer years, and to beat them, the last 2 years, especially the way that they have? What has that been like for Michigan's fan base?
It's been, these are great questions. And, when you go 15 to 17 years where it's not a rivalry, and before that, it was the John Cooper era at Michigan, at Ohio State. So it was, this really hasn't been a true rivalry for the last couple of decades because it's been so one-sided. John Cooper, I think, was 2-10-1 against Michigan. Jim Tressel comes in, dominates. Urban Meyer dominates. So I think for the guys of us that have been around, this feels like Bo versus Woody again, right? The 70s, where, every other year, you knew that this was going to be a game and it was going to be for a championship, and this is the way it was supposed to be. And to finally win that game once, I felt last year, okay, to really make this a rivalry again, you've got to win 2 in a row. And I think that's what the majority of the fan base thought too, was like, this just can't be a one-off, guys. To prove that this rivalry is truly back, you're going to have to win in Columbus for the first time since 2000. And they did that. But there were tears on the field last year, not just players and their families, but fans, where the snow's coming down, you beat them in Ann Arbor. Nobody thought you were going to do it. You're an 8-point underdog at home. Not only did you do it, you dominated. And you're thinking, okay, is this going to be a one-time thing? But we saw fans crying. There were fans leaving the stadium. They were so nervous in the fourth quarter, thinking, okay, this probably isn't going to happen. But then to go down to their place and do it again, you're feeling like, okay, Michigan is now the team to beat in the Big Ten. There's no question that Ohio State's going to be very good. But really, there's a new sheriff in town. They've got to come to Ann Arbor next year with a new quarterback. Michigan's got a loaded team coming next year. It really kind of feels like there's a shift in this rivalry. I think that the fan base has embraced that and now feels like, okay, Michigan's finally back.
Chris, this is great info as always. By the way, I need a true or false. Jim Harbaugh did not send Ward Manuel a Christmas card.
That would be true. John Bacon, one of our great writers up here, said that they haven't spoken since May. Now, I've seen him talking on the field, making chit chat, but in terms of real conversation, I can probably tell you that's true. Jim Harbaugh has been not happy since Ward Manuel the athletic director, cut his salary in half during the COVID season. They've been reluctant to really make him one of the higher paid coaches in the country. You'll find, guys, I think when this contract comes out, he will be one of the top 5 paid coaches in all of college football, as he should be, guys. Let's be fair here. We ripped on him when he was down and he couldn't get over the hump, but to be able to do what he's done at Michigan, and it took a little longer than hoped, and to beat Ohio State the last couple of years the way he has, even though he hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs, that's the next step. I think he's pretty much earned his spot with that and the success he's had everywhere else he's been as one of the better coaches in football.
Chris, thanks as always. Great stuff.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Chris Balas runs the Wolverine, and he has great info on that school. I love having him on. We'll go to the break. Later in the hour, you will hear some of the raw tape of the press conference about 2 hours ago. Mike Vrabel and the new Titans general manager, Ran Carthon. Stay tuned.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is simple. I chose Hermitage Strike and Spare. They were amazing. Great food, great bowling, and a staff that's ready to go the extra mile. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5665.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
Oh, it's playoff time in the NFL. Jeff Pennington's about to join us to lay some good info on us. But first, a word from Pennington Distilling.
Pennington Distilling Company was founded in 2011 with the goal of creating original craft spirits that embody the same character as the city they were born in, Nashville, Tennessee. From grain to glass, every step is taken to produce spirits of exceptional craftsmanship and quality. Pick up one of their award-winning products like Pickers Vodka, Davidson Reserve Whiskey, and Whisper Creek Tennessee Sip and Cream today. Or stop by the distillery in West Nashville and the Nations. Follow them on social media and online at PenningtonDistillingCo.com.
Well, some people call this the best weekend of pro football that there is. Just simply the whatever you want to call it, round of 8. And Jeff Pennington joins us to talk a little bit about it. How are you?
Doing well. How are you? Good. Sorry I missed last week. I should have been on. That was the best week I had. I think I went 8-0 on my personal things. So I was pretty excited.
Well, then feel free to send money.
Yeah. I mean, it's quarters, on
sure. On the dollar.
On the dollar.
Yeah, sure it was. So
Jacksonville, what an amazing comeback.
Oh my God. Can you imagine, Jeff, the flight home by the Chargers?
Oh my gosh. Like, I just had when they scored the first one, I was like, I think this might actually happen. And it's like the Chargers called every play that they could think of to make it happen.
Okay, so let's start with that. It's the first game tomorrow. That point spread that's out there, Kansas City by 9. Should there be a worry that Jacksonville has won their Super Bowl and now, they're just there for the fun of it, but deep down, do they really believe?
Kansas City has not been a good covering team this year. Overall, they've won a lot of games, but they don't seem to be blowing people out like they used to. I don't know if they're just kind of take their foot off their gas a little bit, but I think tomorrow Jacksonville's excited. They've gotten there. I think they get crushed. I think Kansas City shows up ready to play. Jacksonville's excited. They've won their Super Bowl, like you said. So I would normally go against Kansas City just because they haven't been covering. But I think they know it's game time. They've got a week to rest, and Jacksonville just won a first playoff game in how long? I don't even know how long. So they've won their series.
Oh, I mean, that's kind of what I think. Now, I'm not willing to go there tomorrow night Giants at Philly. I think the Giants went to Minnesota a week ago absolutely believing we are the better team. They certainly played like it on the field. And now they go up against the team in their division that won it all. And we don't quite know what Jalen Hurts' injury situation is. So what do you think?
Outside. Sorry, my son just came outside.
What does he have a pick?
No, he's got a new puppy, so he's chasing. He's a puppy terrorist. She just runs to me and runs away. So, I like New York. Phillies, they've looked so good all year. I think New York's playing. They're playing good. Barkley looks good. The whole team looked really good last week. And 7.5 to me, that's a big spread for a divisional series or whatever this is. Divisional series games, right? Whatever this. So. I was kind of shocked. 7.5 to 9 are two big spreads to start with. So I don't think the Giants win. I think the Philly pulls it off, but I could see a 34-31, 30-27. I think it could be a high scoring, but I think the Giants keep it a game.
Okay, so far we've got KC in a runaway and the Giants to cover.
Yeah.
Now, let's go to Sunday, where a lot of people think Cincinnati will give Buffalo everything they want and then some. Where do you stand?
Man, how do you go against Buffalo? I don't know. Cincinnati, it's amazing how good they looked in the second half of the season. I mean, once they got Chase back and they got the team flowing, but I think Buffalo, it's their last game of the year at home. The fans are going to be ready. It's going to be emotional because, this is the game where DeMar got hurt. So I think Buffalo wins. I don't think it's a blowout, but I think they cover 5.5. I could see them winning by a touchdown or 10 points. I think Josh Allen, maybe he needs to ease up on throwing some. He sometimes gets a little sloppy, but for being so good. But I think he's going to be ready to play, and I'm looking forward to. I just want a Buffalo Kansas City rematch. I feel like we deserve a true overtime game between those two again.
No, that'd be awesome. So then we've got this last one Sunday night. And it seems to me this is a line that ought to be more like 7, and that the odds makers people have gone crazy on Dallas's great performance Monday night against Tom Brady.
I got, Tom Brady, that's definitely got to be the worst team he's ever been on, right? I don't think that was all, it is Brady in the playoffs. So, it's hard to go against him in the playoffs, but I don't think that was that big of a win, but I also think, San Francisco's been riding high, and they're all liking the Brock Purdy train, and I just don't buy it. I think Dallas actually wins this game. I think San Francisco's gotten a lot of lucky breaks and lucky matchups and, injuries at the right time on the other teams. I think Dallas is ready to play. I've always been a Dak Prescott fan, coming from Mississippi State. He wasn't a big name. He's gone to like the, probably, I guess, would you say the biggest franchise.
Oh, yeah.
But he hasn't really gotten there. I think they got a good team in Dallas, and I think Dak shows up ready, and I think they win this game.
Meet Michael Cindric from Arlington, Texas. Michael, did you pay him to say that?
No, I like it. I love the confidence in the Cowboys. Honestly, I want to agree with you. But you're doing something to me here with getting my hopes up. This is as a lifelong Cowboys fan, and we haven't been really the dominance that everyone talks about with the Cowboys. I wasn't even alive for, and so all I'm used to is you play really good, get everyone's hopes up, and then let you down. So listen, I'm pulling.
Romo's not there anymore, right? It's Dak. I felt that Romo was that poor guy was so good, but playoffs would come around and just like what happened.
My heart has been just broken too many times to have full confidence. I'll tell you what, if they win though, it's going to be it'll be pretty fun to see because I've never seen anything like it. I've just seen letdowns, honestly, in the playoffs.
I actually have a bet on Dallas to win the Super Bowl. So I don't want to get your hopes up, but that was my long shot that I went in there.
What are the odds that you got on it?
I think it was like 8 + 8, 800.
I love it. I love it.
8 to 1.
I like it.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, heck,
why not?
I was trying to pick bound to have a bad game.
Buffalo and Kansas City were so favored, and I was like, the only team that I thought really had a chance at decent odds was Dallas. I'm not really even a Dallas fan. I was looking at the teams who I thought had the best odds that I thought still had a chance, and Dallas.
worst too has been
It's
growing
funny.
up in-
Dallas and New York and Philly. I think that they can all thank the AFC South for being in the playoffs.
Yeah. That's the
Because
truth.
they all got to play all four of us.
We were a true contributor.
Yeah, we were a contributor to their success this year.
Listen, thank you for coming on as always. We'll compare notes after the weekend, and you're wrong on Dallas.
All right. Y'all have
Go
a good night.
Cowboys.
Thank you.
We'll see. Jeff,
See.
thank you. Okay, that might have given you a little of a hint of where I may go later in the show, but we've got more coming up on this Friday edition of the George Plaster Show, where there's a lot of football out there. Stick around. Attention Vanderbilt fans. The Nashville Predators are continuing their College Night series, and Vanderbilt Night is Thursday, January the 26th. Students, alumni, and fans are invited to celebrate. College Night series ticket packages include a Predators game ticket and a limited edition co-branded hat. Tickets can be purchased at NashvillePredators.com/College Nights. Anchor down. Jody Jones has as nice a dental facility as you'll find anywhere. Let's go in and take a look. Are you in the market for a new dentist? Maybe you're new to Nashville? Well, the place to go is Jody Jones Dentistry at 55 Music Square East, and their new facility is absolutely state-of-the-art. Jody mixes quality with comfort for the perfect dental experience. He's trusted for his creative design and committed to both the function and aesthetics of your smile. Jody is simply the total package. Don't wait. Make an appointment now at 615-259-5100. I know it's getting colder. You're not thinking about golf. However, if you're planning an event for next year, let me suggest golf through Riverside Golf Links. The course has improved dramatically. It's perfect for hosting a corporate or a charitable outing. They've got everything in place to make your event a rousing success. To get more info, call 615-847-5074 or go online to riversidegolflinks.com. Okay, playoff questions for the panel. Billy, that includes you.
Oh, look at that.
How about that?
How special.
Does anybody believe that Jacksonville scares the daylights out of Kansas City?
You know, I told you guys before we went on today, I've got a weird feeling about it because I think Jacksonville, you know, they've been this kind of team all year where everybody counts them out and they'll be out of games, you know, for the entire game. But down the stretch of a game, they'll find a way to claw back. And that's been their season. And Doug Peterson, there's something magical about him in the playoffs. And, you know, he's got a quarterback with him. And I feel like there's a little bit of a Kansas City boredom, kind of a laziness from.
I do think there is some of that.
You know, I mean, KC, they've made runs every year. They've won at least one game in the playoffs every year. And I don't know. I just, there's something, I don't know that the Jags win, but I do think that's an easy cover. That's a lot of points. And they played earlier. It was a 10-point line there, and they lost by 8 or 9, I think, in that one early in the season. So I don't know. If I had to say, I think Jacksonville would be potentially an upset bid for the weekend for me.
I think it's going to be right around the line. You know, Kansas City, their run kind of dynasty, they're not really a dynasty yet, but their run of dominance has really reminded me a lot of when Golden State kind of had their run. When you'd watch Golden State, There are so many times in the regular season they just let teams hang around almost as if they were like bored. We need a close game here. Back when they had Curry and Durant, and it's just like it's a little bit Kansas City in some ways, but I think they win comfortably. I'm not going to say they blitz them by 24, 21, but I think they win a game. It might be 10 points, but I think it's a comfortable win. I don't think it's anything that really scares the daylights out of them. I think Jacksonville is going to be respectable, but part of me thinks that last week was Jacksonville's Super Bowl.
Here's maybe something realistic about it. I don't want to give away where we're going with the plaster bets of the day, because I know, given the fact that I am red hot, that the city is dying to hear where I'm going. Yes. Jacksonville's moments will all be on the offensive side. Defensively, they're not going to have any answers for KC,
right?
Any more than anybody else deep down does. Nobody just throttles KC,
right?
Excuse me. So I don't doubt that Jacksonville will have some moments on offense, because Trevor Lawrence is that good and they've got a talented group around him. I just don't think they have any moments on defense.
Yeah, I agree. And ultimately, Doug Peterson's got some magic for sure. But to bet against fourth quarter, Arrowhead Stadium, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, I just don't see it. I think it'll be, I could see it, 31-21, a game kind of like that. I just don't see 34-21, something in that range, but it's just hard for me to imagine. I know Doug Peterson, he's kind of got that look about him, and they're playing with house money, but there's so many factors against them. And I think Kansas City's really good.
Okay, game number 2 is in Philly at night, and those people
cranked up.
They'll be snockered, and it's an ugly group up there. They take no prisoners. But to me, we're getting these conflicting reports on Jalen Hurts and his condition. And I think you're going to have a clue on what really is going to go on in this game if he is reduced to simply a drop back thrower with no read option. The Giants are going to be in this to the end. If the other happens and he's really 100% or really close, I don't see it.
Yeah, I think similar to Jacksonville, I think the Giants and Dayball, they're going to have a chip on their shoulder going up there because they've already played twice, and I don't know how that series went. Did they split in the regular season? Philly and the Giants? I'm not sure what happened, but I just think
Billy, the last game, of course, was 2 weeks ago, and
Hurts didn't play.
Right,
yeah.
And so there were a lot of the key pieces on all fronts that did not play. And Philly was fortunate because they wouldn't let Hurts do anything.
Billy, I think I'm sure on Monday you're going to tell me how wrong I was if I just whiff on all these picks. But to me, the difference in the Giants...
I'll take care of that.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. To me, the difference in the Giants and the Jags, I just think the Giants are a better team. I think that they're both kind of coming in with that house money type feel, but I think the Giants, Daniel Jones is playing really good football right now, really safe football. Saquon Barkley is an animal, and they've got a great defensive line. The Giants' defensive line can absolutely get after some people, and George, the point you made is really interesting, which is if they can go to war up front and slow down Miles Sanders and make Jalen Hurts do some things that he's a little uncomfortable with, get after him a little bit and start to pressure, and Daniel Jones plays a clean football game, this thing's going down to the last couple of drives. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see Philadelphia get tested. And ultimately, I'd love to see, a Cowboys and Giants NFC Championship game.
Ugh.
Listen, as a Cowboys fan, that sounds great.
Well, I'm sure it does. It'd be, would it be in Dallas?
It would be in Dallas.
Oh, yes. There we go.
Giants, Cowboys in Dallas.
Jerry World would be through the
That would be unbelievable.
Yeah.
Let me ask both of you this. Think about this one for a minute. The over-under of the Jacksonville-Kansas City game is higher than the over-under by 3 points of Cincinnati Buffalo. Wow. Really?
Wow.
I mean, Buffalo Cincy feels like somebody 31-27, somebody 28-27, somebody 30-28. That doesn't feel like some 16-7 kind of game.
Yeah.
Does it?
I think the bigger part of it is, there's not too many good defense. I mean, the best defense left, would you say, is probably San Francisco?
Yes.
Cincinnati didn't have a bad defense.
They're not bad.
They do not have a bad defense at all.
They kind of play in spurts, I feel like, but I don't know. That did surprise me though, George. I was kind of stunned by that a little bit.
I agree with it. I think Kansas City and Jacksonville is going to be more of a shootout than
I do. Yeah.
I think Buffalo is going to know, even though their defense isn't very good, they're going to have to play better than.
They're going to have to crank it,
or else they're getting their butts beat. They're going to have to. I think I agree with you though, George. I think it's not like it's going to be some 16-14 game, but I think more. I see the Kansas City Jacksonville game being a shootout. I mean, I'm just 38-27, a game like that maybe.
Yeah, and the thing for Buffalo and Cincinnati, they had some trouble last week in the wild card round. I mean, they had to really fight, and I think that points to them looking ahead to this game. This is the biggest game for these two quarterbacks since they've been in the NFL. Their chance to kind of cement themselves in the history of their franchises and as premier NFL quarterbacks. So I can't wait. This is the game I'm most excited for: Cincinnati and Buffalo.
This is the disadvantage of being the 2 or the 3 seed. Buffalo or Cincinnati has got to go through the other and then Kansas City, where the Chiefs get Jacksonville, which who knows, may be more than anybody can handle, but I don't believe it. And I believe that's where being the 1 seed is the advantage.
Yes. And that's how it should be. That's how it exactly should be.
This one's fairly substantial, George, as to what.
Let me ask you this. How much pressure do you think is on Buffalo to get to the Super Bowl? Because, I mean, even though Cincinnati hadn't won it, they far exceeded expectations last year. Kansas City's been there, done that. I mean, what do you think that pressure's like in Buffalo right now?
I think it's fairly significant, partly because the 90s Bills went 0 for 4 in the Super Bowl, and that fan base so wants this to happen. What I kind of think is that their defense has they've had some slippage in the last 6 weeks, and they're not as good a defense as I thought they were earlier in the year. And if they play anything close to the way they played against Miami, they're not winning this game.
No, you're right. I mean, you're exactly right.
Josh Allen had some just wild mental miscues, like a couple of awful interceptions. And, I like what you said, Michael, about you were talking to Watson about this either Monday or Tuesday about how they're kind of a bang for your buck type of team where, they'll score 3 touchdowns in a row on you in, 10-minute span. And then, Allen will throw a couple interceptions, back-to-back drives, and then you're back in the game. So they're kind of feast or famine. I mean, it's a lot. A lot of this is on Josh Allen.
But there also might be a pressure he's feeling.
That's right.
Because his defense isn't shutting anybody down. That he may be going into these things saying, I got to score every time. It's almost like arena football.
Yes. Yeah. You get that pressure in you that you start pressing. You start acting a little bit out of how you normally act. You see it with, really good basketball players on bad teams. They start taking bad shots because they don't feel like no one else is going to make the play. You honestly saw it in the beginning stages of Patrick Mahomes' career with the Chiefs. He had been on Texas Tech for so long and pressing, kind of having to do everything. Andy Reid's job was just, hey, don't make the dumb throws. Just let the game come to you. And that's why, he's been so good. And so Josh Allen's got a little bit of that learning curve of, part of it is he feels like he needs to press because he probably has to, but that's also leading him to some poor decisions.
Y'all see what you think here on the final game. In the last 6 weeks, San Francisco gets off to red hot starts. They get Brock Purdy in a comfort zone, and you never feel like anything bad's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
For me, if Dallas is going to win, they have got to smash that comfort zone early. They've got to say to the 49ers, not this week. This is not going to be methodical ground game. You're going to have to make throws on 3rd and 8 to beat us. And Dallas needs to win the game early. They have got to win the first 6-8 minutes of the game to send San Fran a message that, hey, playtime's over.
George, I'm gonna give you a compliment here. I think that's the best take of all the 4 that you've had on all of these. I think that is exactly right. If you are betting that game and can live bet, I would live bet after the first quarter. If that game is 3-3 and it looks like Dallas is going to be a knockdown drag out and Dallas isn't going anywhere, they're not getting pushed around, then you need to take Dallas. I mean, it's one of those things of, you're exactly right. After the first quarter, I think we're going to know a lot. If it's 10-0 Niners, then don't put your money anywhere near Dallas. But if Dallas comes out and they're competing, their defense is going to war with that offensive line for San Francisco, it's going to be, I think, the first quarter of that game is going to tell us everything we need to know.
I completely agree. And I think the weapons for the 49ers, how they're able to utilize them against that Cowboys back end of their defense, the corners and the safeties, that's an almost impossible offense to match up with. If you say, hey, I'm going to take off Christian McCaffrey, we're going to load the box. He's not running on us. Well, you also got George Kittle in play action. You've got Ayuk out there. And you've also got Deebo Samuel too. So for the Cowboys, I think if you're them, you've got to put all your chips in the front 7 and just send the house on Purdy and basically make his life miserable and really frustrate him. And if Purdy's executing and he's making the throws, I think it could be a long night for the Cowboys. But if they're able to frustrate him and force some throws that he doesn't want to make, I think the Cowboys have a real shot in this.
I want you all to think about this for a second. So the flight, I'm guessing they leave tomorrow, although I guess it's possible they left today.
Yeah.
But the flight from Dallas to San Fran is probably about 3 hours. Okay. Up in first class, Jerry and all the beautiful people that he surrounds himself with, they're having some cocktails and how about them Cowboys? Okay. Did you like that? But in coach, where the players are, there's poor Brett Maher.
Oh,
How many times on that flight is he saying to himself, oh my God, what happens when we score?
Why is he still on the roster?
Well, you see they added a kicker this week.
Yeah, but they don't intend to use him. They're trying really hard.
If he misses the first one,
I hate saying this, and it's not directed at you, Michael. I know you're a Cowboys fan, but I would almost love to see Maher miss at least 2 extra. I mean, could you imagine?
Oh,
I'll give you a bold prediction. I think if he misses the first one, the other guy comes in. I don't think they're going to play those games.
I agree.
But what kind of mind games as this flight is going through Arizona and New Mexico, and Jerry's up there going, how about them Cowboys?
The sad thing is, and this is typical because everyone loves to hate on the Cowboys, which is warranted, but
how about them Cowboys?
50% of the story this week hadn't even been about how good the Cowboys play. It's been about Brett Maher.
They keep showing these kicks.
Oh, he's had
all of them go to this side of the goalpost.
I think what they're going to do is just set the ball up in the middle of the hash.
Oh,
I mean, why were they kept setting up on the left
They kept
hash.
going way left, and he kept going way right. I'll tell you what it looked like. It looked like my golf game at Harpeth Hills, just to be honest. We'll go to the break on all of this, and then it's the moment all of you have waited for. The Red Hot Plaz makes you money. You like that? Stick around.
Hey, thank you for meeting with me today. The insurance company has made an offer.
Already? How?
They've offered you the entire policy.
Thank you, Blair.
You're so welcome.
Jody Jones has as nice a dental facility as you'll find anywhere. Let's go in and take a look. Are you in the market for a new dentist? Maybe you're new to Nashville? Well, the place to go is Jody Jones Dentistry at 55 Music Square East. and their new facility is absolutely state-of-the-art. Jody mixes quality with comfort for the perfect dental experience. He's trusted for his creative design and committed to both the function and aesthetics of your smile. Jody is simply the total package. Don't wait. Make an appointment now at 615-259-5100.
Welcome back into the George Plaster Show, final segment here on this Friday ahead of a huge football weekend. It's almost time for Plaster's Bet of the Day, brought to you by Bart Durham Injury Law. They are lawyers that you can trust. Give them a call at 615-242-9000. That's 615-242-9000, or log on to bartdurham.com. George, what has to happen for you to cool off a little bit? I feel like you're too hot right now. You need to dump some water on you.
The NFL playoffs.
Probably so.
Yeah. Basketball's been good to you, George.
Michael, let me ask you this. Have you at all said to yourself, wow, he's pretty good?
Well, considering that I make this graphic, there's been a lot of red in the past.
He's got to think about it every day.
You know, I've seen enough red to know, okay, you know, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened.
Well, you know what?
We've had a good week.
I'd like to let you do 208 bets and see if you had 104 on the right side.
Listen, I could flip a coin and
it wouldn't turn out.
It might be 104 and 104.
I don't think so. I think you're kidding yourself.
Well, I want to see
an amazing accomplishment.
I want to see sustained days in the 500 and up.
Well,
category.
you know what? You see some sustained days. You call your bookie and see how sustained it'll be.
George, you should be. I don't like this attitude. You should be happy right now.
There is a reason that these places have beautiful chandeliers.
They don't get them. They get them from people like us, George.
Yeah, you're paying for them. However, we're on a heater. This is officially a heater.
I'm excited.
It will continue.
I want to see more green weeks. I did enjoy not having to change the colors back and forth. Just seeing all green was nice.
He's been making you work as of late.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
All right, George.
Okay.
Let's start with your two-team teaser here.
Yeah, and here's where I'm coming from. Jacksonville may have moments. They're not going to Arrowhead and win. So we're teasing KC down to -2.5. The other one is a little more uncertain. It's a really tough environment that the Giants are walking into. And I think it comes down to whether Jalen Hurts is healthy enough to be a running game factor. If he is, Philly's going to win, and I'm going to win that. If he's not, this is going to get a little hairy.
Interesting teaser.
I like it, though. I mean, ultimately, you're saying, are the Giants going to go to the NFC Championship or not? Because, I mean, I think you're getting them down to just about a pick 'em. I like it.
Okay, the next one, first of all, would I be shocked if Cincinnati wins the game outright? Because there's a cool and a calm about Joe Burrow, the likes of which we have not seen since Joe Montana. It's really pretty amazing. Now, why are they that big an underdog? I don't know. I do know that I believe that line should have been Buffalo 3 just simply because they were at home. 5.5 feels a little too much to me, and I can see this game coming down to Buffalo's defense having to get a final stop against Joe Burrow. And if that comes down to that, I don't think they're going to get it. I think their defense has got a lot of holes, and Cincinnati knows it, and I think they're going to cover.
Can Buffalo get a pass rush? That's going to be big because, like we said at the top, they got 2 linemen out in Buffalo. Crowd's going to be jacked up. That's a big key. And also, how does Burrow? How does he respond to it if they do get bring pressure?
Hey, nothing phases him.
That kid does
9 sacks, and he ends up just staying upright, winning the game.
And then the quote this week: "I never feel like an underdog." God,
it's ridiculous. His confidence is ridiculous.
He gets away with more of this stuff without people hating on him. It's amazing.
It's impossible.
He does it in a way that you like it. You kind of
you can't hate anybody that hates on Joe Burrow.
Yeah,
probably hates their life also.
Yep.
Like it's impossible to hate on the guy. It's crazy.
Here's the final one. I'm not buying Dallas. I think more of this.
You're just doing this to spite Michael, aren't you?
No, I think more of this has to do with an overreaction. I think there is, first of all, this huge fan base. They affect lines. Dallas people are betting Dallas like crazy.
That's why it's at 4, only at 4.
Right. And here's the deal. If they show 2 weeks in a row, the no penalties, the no mistakes, the Dak who's dead letter perfect, then you know what? Hats off to them. Tip your cap. How about them Cowboys? But do I believe that? No, I don't. I think San Fran gets a lot of pressure on him. I think they end up making a lot of dumb mistakes. You're going to see a lot of shots of Jerry in the booth. He's going to look like he swallowed a hand grenade. And San Fran, here's the thing.
They won their Super Bowl last week. The Cowboys, that was their Super Bowl. They celebrating in the booth.
Even if it's really close, is it possible that Maher, when it's most needed, gives you one of these?
The clankers.
Oh.
Here's my prediction for the game, George. Because I don't really disagree with your San Fran pick. Trust me, I get it.
Well, you should listen to me. I'm red hot. Okay. I'm on a heater.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. I think that the line is not close to the final score. And I don't know which way. I think Dallas either wins outright close, which would mean the line's totally wrong, or I think that Dallas gets blitzed. I don't think that there's a scenario where San Fran wins by 3. I think it's Dallas wins outright, or it's about a 14-point game.
It's huge. What you said earlier, Michael, if the Cowboys get down early 10-0, 13-0, you feel like they're not really the team that has a lot of mental toughness to be able to fight through that and come back. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. I don't see too many leaders, emotional leaders. I mean, Dak he's a leader, but I don't know that he's a guy that will truthfully rally the troops like a Burrow or an Allen. So we'll see. I think that's huge key. If they get down early, what happens?
Okay, we're done. We've either got a lot of explaining to do on Monday
or a lot of this.
A lot. Wow.
Yeah.
How long have you been here?
Long enough to know that.
You just piped down. Billy, in this configuration, you're number 2.
Oh, let's go.
Okay, and he's number 4 in this configuration with only 3 people. When he does that, get him out of here. We'll see all of you Monday. Have a good weekend.